Hi, I'm Melissa Moore, and today we're going to be talking to Luchy López, who's in Spain currently, and someone I've worked with before and who has worked with the Karuna community in ancestor work and movement. Luchy and I have an upcoming program called Ancestral Ground, a Maitri Retreat in the Body of the Earth. And it's taking place in person in a very earthy place in Tehachapi, California. Hard to get to, and there's wisdom in that. It takes some to get there. And Lucci and I are combining our work, respecting each other's work independently, but also really bringing together the five Buddha family posture work, which is an embodiment practice based on Dzogchen, and Lucci's ancestral work.
Well, thank you, Melissa. Yes. So, yeah, my name is Luchy López, and I come from a background of performing arts, and my work around ancestry is already developed for about 20 years now through a lot of work with the body and a very free way to address movement and at the same time learning how to get in contact with the body and the multiple layers of information that you might find through the body as an instrument of wisdom. And we are very excited about getting together and exploring my experience with the Maitri Buddha families and that beautiful wisdom and that I have found for myself very useful and very full of information and tools that bring you to the daily life, accomplishing everyday life in another more expanded way.
So we will be doing the postures outdoors at Ari Bhöd, which is something we've done in several retreats already. They have a perfect space that's kind of up on this hillside. It's a very narrow valley, and this particular space overlooks the temple and also the rest of the land. And there are rides up the hill if people want them. I've been known to take them. And also staying outside. So in the morning, we evoke the mandala and the element in particular. And then that day when we're laying outside on the earth day, we're really laying in the posture that invites that relationship to the earth, and we are the earth. And then it just becomes deeper and deeper of inseparability from the elements because there is no separation ultimately. So we're discovering that together, and we're discovering it in our contemplation time as well.
Yeah, and it comes to my mind also that it's not so often that we have the opportunity to be in contact with places with where nature expresses itself in such a strong and wild form, right? As we live in cities, being able to do the postures outside is also something very special that is not very common to be able to
Often,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
But this place actually is so protected too. We're lucky because the ground has been tilled there with other practices that draw on this same mandala. So we just tap right into that. It's almost like we plug in. I know the first time I went there many years ago. Now, what was during COVID? It's the only place we could find in California to do our retreat for our cohort. And when I got on the land, it just seemed so small and kind of narrow. And then pretty soon I had altitude sickness, and I come from Colorado. So it's really like one, little degree difference in Colorado. So that didn't make sense to me. But what was happening, I found, is that I had to enter the land and I had to make offerings to the land to allow me to teach there and be
Mhm.
part of this mandala that was already established, and I got very involved in that and have been doing that in the several retreats we've been doing there. So I feel very in relationship to this land, and it has reciprocated in potency in the programs, way beyond, I mean, I'm holding the container along with other Karuna faculty as we will be doing, and Miriam Hall will be assisting us, which is wonderful. So we have really good boundaries, but the land teaches us.
We're also going to call for our ancestries' protection in that sense too, right?
Mhm.
By when exploring the mandala.
I know that this is an ancient mandala with a lot of potency, and that we can evoke it as a kind of mirror or portal in which to enter this inquiry into our ancestry in community. And then we were discussing the whole collective notion and how we might use the information that we get and not to solidify it in some way. And I have personal examples of that working in me that I have to work with strongly. And from your work and other ancestry work that I've done together.
Exactly. Well, one of the things about working with a mandala that is very, very interesting to explore is how the mandala gives us a balance of the elements and how
Yeah.
it allows us to explore and to reach aspects that are not so in the front of our consciousness, right? So they
Yeah.
might be hiding or they might be needed to be seen
Yeah.
uh, as
And
they are
sharing
there.
in community can do that too, because we hear experience in others and
Exactly,
it resonates in us in such a way that we realize we've had that experience or we understand it in some deeper way than just the thinking mind.
exactly.
And that,
And that helps us also through the work to go into one sense of the flow or another, because the whole community is what is allowing direction, that although we have all the work that is there prepared, how we move through those lines of exploration comes from the fact of sharing together and feeling as if it's a bigger body. It's not only our story,
yeah,
but something bigger.
the inseparability piece, and that is the non-dual work of the mandala as well, that it has this tantric roots and it reaches down into, mostly it has been practiced with in a tantric method to bring it into a personal psychological method is almost antithetical to its nature and what it's meant to be, because it's really a liberating tool on which to not solidify, but to widen the mind and understand our inseparability and touch into the non duality and wisdom that is accessible to us in all moments, but we shroud ourselves, so to speak. And when we work in community, we can take big leaps and bounds with one another. It's really a festival of openness. That's what I love
Exactly.
about the Maitri work. As we
Different.
know, we've done it together
Yeah.
uh, in Spain.
Such a beautiful and inspiring and vivifying. No, how do you say some
Vivifying, vivifying. I don't know
vivifying?
if that's
Yes,
a word. Yeah,
vivify.
Eva.
Yeah,
It in Spanish.
vivificante. So
Vivificante. Yeah, I love it. Love that.
something that arises life, right?
Yeah, life force. And it's
Life
very,
force.
that's very important. And that life force actually is something we share, with our
Right?
ancestry and we carry it forward or we have obstacles to it in a similar way.
Exactly.
It's
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and there's something interesting about this paradoxal aspect of the exploration. On one side, we are touching these fields of wisdom that allows us to liberate. On the other side, we're touching stories that we are holding on that are very close and subjective and very close to our personal way of feeling life. The possibility of having this narrative about the experience I come from through my ancestors, and at the same time the openness of liberating everything that is tied, is something that gives us a breath about our own way to walk through life. So although I have this tendency to solidify a story about my ancestry and about myself, I can get the sense of having boundaries more flexible and more permeable,
Or fluid, yeah.
fluid, so that although I need to tell myself a story, I
Yeah.
know that that is not the definite, ultimate story. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more the relative story, and sometimes we
exactly.
need our relative stories to wake up. We're all at different spaces. It's sorta like my husband always tells me, "You have trouble watching a movie if it doesn't have a plot." And it's true. No, I like a plot. I think we do like a plot in our lives, and sometimes that can resonate meaning, and other times it can be just a storyline that we hook onto and ride for a long time and hide instead of experience something much wider minded.
Mhm.
But I'm really looking forward to this exploration because the community piece, the Maitri piece will give definition to deepening of Maitri Space Awareness. This program is appropriate for those who have at least been exposed to Maitri in one way or another through study, and I'll take it a case by case basis because that familiarity will take deeper and down into the embodiment and movement and art. And we can use some of the Karuna methods like body, speech, and mind, and some of these notions that play with exchange and non duality. And we'll do ritual throughout every day to evoke the mandala. The
Mhm.
day, whatever day we're on, we'll invite that energy to be teacher because this land is very endowed with this mandala and these practices. And I've found that when we do that mandala, it's just program takes off. I'm holding it and, I'm being mindful of it, but I'm also learning because,
Yes.
there's not a separation there either.
One of the things that I hope that people can get out of the retreat is the sense of ancestry as a life force that can be a sustaining force, a nourishing force, a wisdom force. Since we have done a lot of work in these times about trauma that comes from the ancestry, and it's a reality, but we also have a lot of wisdom and a lot of blessings that come from understanding that what happened doesn't need to be repeated, doesn't need to be have a continuity in this ignorance and aggression that we carry on. So I hope that people will have the experience of feeling themselves part of an ancestry that is not heavy, but opening and inspiring.
And I hope that people would more freely bind themselves to the elements in such a way and ask for assistance because the elements are also ancestral in a certain kind of way, and that can be easier. And then we have to start with the people we know. When I do ancestor work, I forget to think about my own mother and father. That's so accessible. There's a lot of territory to cover with this work.
Yeah. And there's also the sense of understanding that we ourselves are going to become ancestors of the next generations. And that sense, everything that we are able to kind of touch and have compassion towards and equanimity and all the mandala that we can get into an harmony in our present life can be felt as a blessing for the next generations. So we can just take a moment to breathe. If you're seated with your back straight, it might be more awakening. If you need to lay down, it's fine. And allow ourselves to just land into the present moment and letting all these ideas that have been shared about ancestry and the elements resonate inside of us and land inside. And as we breathe, we might feel how the information kind of flows like water. And as we do so, through our breathing, we can go towards the inside, landing into our tender hearts. And the need that we experience in this moment of having the sense of belonging, of being held by life, the need of a sense of stability in the middle of the flow of the emotions, the thoughts, and the experiences we have. And as we touch that need, we might open up our perceptions towards the back, our back, our shoulders representing where we come from. And we can imagine we open up the door to those ancestors that are walking very close to us with wisdom and blessings. Those ancestors that are willing the best for us in the sense of consciousness, wisdom, and the beautiful attributes our hearts can carry, those sensations that brings us back to the sense of belonging and being part of life. And being part of a flow that has a sense. And we might have the sensation of a presence, of their presence. We might know or not know who comes to our openness while looking into that direction. But we can feel the warmth and the strength, the force, the life force that is there. We can breathe and feel how we can take that into the space where the need is, as if they were waters that feel that space, that flow into that space, nourishing it. And how that water goes into the earth that sustains us, bringing all that nourishing into that land that is our place in the world. And we can evoke the light of the sun that comes from our present heart in contact with the fire element, and how that warmth goes into that earth as if this experience is a little seed that is for the moment going into that earth and being kept there with tenderness. And so we can gently come back and check how our body feels and how our inner space might be transformed. And we can take contact with our devices or our room, or our eyes, and get a sense of what has changed. Thank you.
Thank you.